Hey guys, anyhow, so this is for entertainment and education purposes only, and everything I say could be wrong. Do your own research, come to your own conclusions. Yeah, anyhow, alright, so let's get right into this video. We're going to change up the tempo a little bit. I'm just going to talk about whatever. I'm going to talk about chicks, relationships, romance, and all this. In relation to music. So, yeah, I don't really plan on really getting involved romantically. I really don't see that as something that's gonna happen, and I'm totally cool with that. Like, it don't bother me. If I need to get laid, I can get laid. That's no problem. That's not really a problem, generally speaking. I can get laid if I absolutely need to. It's like whatever. So it's not really like whatever. If it's in the cards for me to end up in a relationship, then okay. But if it's not, it's no big deal because I can get laid. I can figure out how to get laid. You know what I mean? So, with that being said, I'm taking a piss in this piss bottle here. Excuse me. Well, anyways, so you know what I mean though. So in that sense, then it's kind of like, okay, well, now that I know where I'm at, regarding all of this whole idea of romantic relationships and stuff, whatever. I know where I'm at, so now that I know where I'm at, it doesn't really matter too much. It's just like whatever. If it's in the cards and it's meant to be, then it'll happen. And if it doesn't, then oh well. It's not like the end of the world, and that I ought to just sink into depression and oh my gosh, woe is me. And and then you might have angry chicks that'll be like, well, she wouldn't. Who would want to be with you? And all that. You got all the angry feminists and stuff, which is just one more reason why it's like, well, who cares? Why do I care that I'm not going to get with some angry feminist that just wants to control my life, because they're bored and they get their jollies off of controlling other people. So it's like when you start weeding out, like, who do you and I want to be around versus who do you and I not want to be around, you're going to find that many, many people around you don't want anything to do with because they're total fucking psychos. Or they're just totally fucking stupid, right? And so, it's like, it's kind of like, well, if there's a lot of psycho narcissist people everywhere, and stupid zombie sheeple, and narcissist demon-possessed, like, psychos everywhere, like, well, what are the chances of finding any potential meaningful relationship? And then, of course, the optimist has to inject their optimism and start pushing their hopium white pills on everybody. And it's like, nah, I'm cool, man. I'm a big fan of Diogenes. If you don't know who Diogenes is, Diogenes was basically the founder and pioneer of the philosophy of cynicism, where it's just like, whatever, dude, and Diogenes was homeless. He lived on the streets of, I don't know if it was Greece or Rome, and he just didn't give a fuck. He didn't care what people thought of him. He didn't give a fuck about any and all this societal bullshit, because it's all just bullshit, Therefore, he was a cynic. And even though he was homeless, and he just was a bum on he just bummed on the street because there is no point in engaging in the rat race. That's why he was homeless. because he saw it was all one big fucking infestation of rats in a big rat race, and it's all bullshit. And so he just kicked back in the streets and fucking watched it all go down and laughed at it. That's all. And the thing is, even though he was like, he could spar with the best philosophers of his time, and he would go in and just like put a famous philosopher to shame, by exposing how the flaws in that philosopher's, argument. It's like, dude, you're a fucking idiot. Look at how stupid this argument is. And because of him being a cynicist and not giving a fuck about the rat race is what gave him an edge in philosophy and debate, where all these philosophers who were all about the rat race and everything was about fitting into society, see, all that shit clouded their vision. Their philosophical things begin to get clouded with all this stupid shit about money and prestige and so in that sense, Diogenes had an edge, when it came to debate and philosophy. He could point out flaws that most people can't see because they're not wearing their They Live sunglasses. They're just totally consumed with all of this idiocy, chasing money and all this stuff. Anyway, so angry women might try to be like, oh, angry hobo, he's just no woman would want to be with him. And I'm just like, fucking who cares, dude? I can go get some pussy right now if I want, and it's decent, and it's probably better than whatever this chick is that's claiming that, oh, angry hobo is just a, So anyways, so I don't really care about, why should I care about, a romantic relationship and stuff? Okay, so see, now that I know where I'm at, I'm like, okay, this is where I'm at. Okay, it is what it is, or it is not what it is not, anyways, So now that I can acknowledge where I'm at, then I can look through that purview and be like, okay, being where I'm at in mentally and everything else. Now, what would be the ideal situation romantically for me? Well, and there's some obvious ones, which would be, well, she would have to enjoy living rough because I live rough. She would have to enjoy that, right? And I actually have, there are very few women that enjoy living rough. And even the ones that you come across where you think they enjoy living rough, they end up being like phobos and trust fund baby cunts anyways. They like living rough until it gets difficult, and then they just call mommy and dad send them money, and then all that shit. But that's like fake. That's pussy shit, dude. I'm talking about truly living rough. Not like I'm living rough until it gets so hard that I just contact my safety net and they can bail me out. No. I've never had that. And so I would need a chick who is seasoned in living rough and enjoys it. Has learned to enjoy living rough. So, and that wouldn't be very easy to find. Okay. On top of that, I would need for this theoretical female, to not be a drug addict and to not be an alcoholic. So they got to be seasoned in living rough and have learned how to enjoy living rough, but also they're not a drug addict and they're not a fucking alcoholic. And then that really narrows it down even more. I mean, we're already narrowing it down to a very fine, she really needs to be able to be seasoned at living rough and has learned to enjoy living rough, Okay, now that really narrows it down to very few women. Okay, then on top of that, she can't be a drug addict and an alcoholic. So that narrows it even more, right? This is just more reason why, well, there's really no point in being concerned with whether or not I'm going to get in a romantic relationship with a female, because like, what are the chances of finding a person with those qualities? Because then there's even more qualities that are probably somewhat of a necessity. One of which being music. I know, isn't that weird, music? Yeah, me and her have to have at least similar musical tastes. And I don't mean similar in the sense of that I like AC/DC and she likes Nickelback. Because some of you may be aware that there is no similarity between AC/DC and Nickelback. Even though many people are just like totally oblivious to this fact, that there is no similarity between the band AC/DC and Nickelback. But most people, or many people, think that, well, AC/DC and Nickelback, they're similar, so what? No, see, now that wouldn't work. Okay. Now, if 80% of the music that she liked was like AC/DC, Beastie Boys, the Allman Brothers, old Metallica, shit like that. And then there was like this little tiny percent where she liked a couple of these cheesy bands like Nickelback. I can forgive that. But see, when the percentage is the other way, we have a major problem. Like, if all she likes is like Nickelback and all this crappy new metal but then a little slight percentage of the shit music she actually does like is actually worth liking. That's just a problem. That's like keeping a broken clock around because it happens to be right twice a day. So this chick was right about a small percentage of music, but the majority of the shit that she prefers is all garbage, right? And then a lot of people may want to be compelled to try to argue that, well, music is in the ear of the beholder. And that's just opinion, what you're talking about. And it's like, okay. But see, who would say that? 9 times out of 10, the person that says that musical taste is all based in opinion, 9 times out of 10, those people don't know anything about like music theory. They don't know anything about like how to play musical instruments. They don't know anything about being able to measure music competency, like how competent is a person with their instrument. Like they're totally oblivious to any and all that. They don't know how to listen to hear music competency and quality composition and songwriting. They don't know how, and that's why 90% of all this stuff they listen to is just garbage. And every once in a while they get lucky and I kind of like that band. I listen to, whatever, Typo Negative. And it's like, yeah, okay, you listen to Typo Negative, which is, yeah, okay, I can hang with that. But 90% of the shit you listen to is stupid shit, like Nickelback and stuff. So it doesn't really make sense how Typo Negative fit into the mix of this when the majority of all the shit you listen to is garbage. Unquestionably, So anyways, a female has to have intelligent taste in music. I may not necessarily need to agree with the music that she listens to, but I can tell the difference between intelligent selection in music and like brain dead, like stupid discernment. They have no discernment. Because I can listen to something and not necessarily like it, but I can respect it because of its quality. For example, Like if I meet this chick, right? Let's say she's seasoned in living rough to the point where she enjoys living rough, and she's not a drug addict and she's not an alcoholic, okay? And she likes music, but she mostly only likes jazz, like real jazz, okay? I can work with that because I do enjoy me a little bit of some jazz, but it's not my number one go-to, you know, whereas it is hers. Like, I can work with that because, you know, jazz is jazz, you know. I mean, you know, you have to admit that there's so many jazz players that are pretty fucking badass, you know, really. But anyway, so yeah, so these are some things. I just thought it was, you know, because sometimes I view things in reference to music, you know. You know, sometimes you can tell a stupid person by what kind of music they listen to, unfortunately, you know. I mean, it's just the way it is, you know. So, yeah, and like I'm no master, like but I have a decent amount of discernment when it comes to music, real music from fake music, you know. And I would like that in a female. I was listening to Joan Jett. I love rock and roll. Fuck, man. Dude, a chick like Joan Jett, oh my god. Look at Joan Jett. She fucking knows how to play guitar. She knows how to write rock and roll songs. She wears leather jackets. She's nothing but swag, dude. She's fucking hot as fuck. She's got swag. I mean, yeah. But how often do you actually meet someone like that? That's why people like her ended up getting famous, I think. Is because chicks like Joan Jett are fucking rare. You know? How rare it is to meet a chick like Joan Jett. No. Today they're all into rap music and fucking playing video games and listening to rap. And, you know, it's like you just don't meet a chick like Joan Jett, you know. I dated a girl once for a very brief period that was like Joan Jett. Like she wore Motorhead shirts and she fucking lived rough. She was attractive and shit. I was like, fuck yeah, right? Yeah, but then it didn't take very long to realize she's a trust fund. She's a trust fund baby. She doesn't really enjoy living rough. She likes to pretend like she enjoys living rough. But when it really comes down to it, she don't know what it's like to live rough, because whenever things get hard, she just calls mommy and daddy and they bail her out. And so I can't relate with a person like that, you know. And that person like that can't relate with me. They'll never understand the way I live. Because they have a person and they have a safety net of people they can call to bail them out when they're in trouble. And they've had that all their life. They've never known anything outside of that. Whereas I have. And so, you know, it's difficult. Like, I could see possibly that working out between us if I dated a chick like that. But that would mean that chick would have to, like, be willing to understand me, you know, and vice versa, me understand her, which is another thing that's very rare today. Most people are not looking to understand others. Most people are only looking to be understood by others, not to understand, only to be understood. You know what I'm saying? So anyway, just some thoughts on chicks, you know, dating, relationships, romance, etc.